With estimation in real life or on the high set, very often just picking a close by number that's easy to work with is all you need to do. Sometimes you need to know the official rules of rounding, however, so this video reviews those rules, and if you're already familiar with rounding, you can skip to the next video. I'm going to take a number like 17 and we're going to round it to the nearest tens place. And all we're doing when we round it to the nearest tens place is we're taking the 10 that is below 17, that is less than 17, which is 10, and the one that's just above 17, which is 20, and we're just asking ourselves which one is 17 closer to. Obviously, 17 is closer to 20, so 17 will round up to 20. The reason we use this magic number 5 as our marker for what we're going to round up or down, as you'll see in the next segment, is because it's the halfway point. So what we're really saying is anything that is 15 or greater is going to be closer to 20, and anything that is less than 15 is going to be closer to 10. Let's take the number 283, which happens to be the number of times I've had to record this video with all the construction going on outside. First, let's round it to the nearest tens place. What we do is ask ourselves what number is already in the tens place. That is the 8. We look next to it. 3 is less than 5. That means we're going to round 283 down. Does not mean we're going to go from 8 to 7. The 8 is going to stay the same. When you round down, the digit that is in the place value you're rounding to stays the same. It does not go down one. In other words, it goes to 280, not 270. 280 is 283 rounded to the nearest tens place. Now we'll take this same number and round it to the hundreds place. Because having to add 280 a bunch of times wouldn't be that easy. So let's round it to the hundreds place. 2 is what's in the hundreds place now. Next to the 2 is an 8. That is obviously 5 or larger. So that means we're going to round up, and everything that comes after the hundreds place, which is the number we were rounding it to, the hundreds place. Everything after the hundreds place becomes a 0. One time you'll often find yourself rounding or estimating is when you're working with money. Let's take, for example, $17.73, which is the cost of a small coffee at Starbucks. Let's say we wanted to round it to the nearest ones place. Nothing changes just because there's a decimal. We simply go to the nearest ones place. Now, when you talk about money, a lot of times that will be phrased this way: round this number to the nearest dollar. That means to the nearest $1 amount. So you just identify the ones place, look to the right, the decimal doesn't make a difference, and then ask yourself if this number here is 5 or greater, which it is, which means we're going to take the number that's in the place value we were rounding to and round it up to 8. Everything that comes after will be zeros. I've got 2 decimals here for some reason, but don't let that bother you. $18 is $17.73 rounded to the nearest dollar. So let's say I needed to get several people in the office one of these rather expensive cups of coffee. Even $18, having to add that several times would be difficult, so we might be better served by rounding to the nearest tens place. And you can see the number that's in the tens place right now is 1. And really, we're just going to be asking ourselves, is this number closer to 10 or is it closer to 20? Obviously, it's closer to 20, but just following the rules of rounding, we take the number that's in the place value that we are rounding to. That's a 1. We look next to it. Is that number 5 or greater? Yes, it is. So the number that is in the place value goes up 1. Everything after is a 0. Again, putting 2 zeros after the decimal point just because that's how we write money. One thing that's a little confusing to some people is when the place value you're rounding to already has a 9 in it. So we might try to round this to the nearest ones place. Looking at the ones place, there's a 9 there. We can't put 2 digits in one place value location. In other words, I can't just turn that 9 into a 10 and keep the 2. Obviously $29.95 is not going to round to $210. That doesn't make any sense. Instead, what I want to do is put a 0 in the ones place. It's almost like we're going to be writing 10 using both of these places. So the ones place becomes a 0, and that extra 1 that's sitting there means that the place to the left of it, in this case the tens place, goes up 1, and it becomes $30. $29.95 rounded to the nearest ones place becomes $30. And in this case, rounding to the ones place and rounding to the tens place is going to get you the same number, 30. And that's what happens when there's some nines involved. Don't let it throw you off. It's perfectly legal.